Welcome to the jungle. We've got fun, games, and if you drink the water, dysentery. Please don't drink the water. Hey, ladies and gents, I'm Andrew Fantasia, and welcome to Thumb Together, where we're going to talk about this movie right here together. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. It's been 21 years? 22 years since Jumanji? God, I'm old. I saw that movie once in theaters, I believe. Yeah, in theaters. My dad used to take me to the movies all the time back in the 90s, and that was one of the ones we went to. And that was the last time I saw it. In theaters, Robin Williams with the beard, that was it. So I didn't really get a refresher course going into this one. Usually I do that, just refresh my memory because, like I said, it's been over 2 decades. But I didn't do that this time. I just kind of went into this clean. And I'm not sure if that's to my benefit or not. I think we'll have to see. So let's dive into this movie. Let's talk about Welcome to the Jungle, a sequel that is a long time coming. But before we sort of, look at the plot, I think that I should mention there's this great trend now that's begun. I want to say maybe this year, maybe the last year and a half, this trend has started to become more and more normal, that I love, and I'm very happy that they're doing, is that Hollywood is finally looking at all these movies and saying, yeah, we could reboot it, but there's no good reason not to just make it a sequel. And finally they're understanding that you don't have to reboot every damn thing. You can have sequels. That's Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is a sequel. In fact, I think at one point the working title was Jumanji 2, Welcome to the Jungle. So you let that be a lesson to everybody out there who's got power in the wood and is making the films. Sequels are okay. They are perfectly okay. In fact, they are a little bit more okay than remakes sometimes, depending on what you're doing. So you don't have to remake everything. That's the moral of the story. So Jumanji, Part 2. They changed the game, literally. They changed the game in that it's not a board game anymore. It's a video game now. And I was a little bummed out by that in the movie. When I heard about it at first, I was like, cool, that's actually a neat idea. Roll with the times. We are living in the future now. We're the Jetsons. So make it a video game. Why not? But in the context of the film itself, when I saw it, I was a little bit bummed out by that. I like the look of the Jumanji board game. I like that wood finish. It just looks ancient, and you pull it open, and it just, there's nothing else that looks like it. And I'm a big board game guy. I'm a big video game guy too. I mean, that shelf behind me is full of video games, but board games are kind of a thing I love. My friends and I have board game nights all the time, so we it's a very niche sort of thing that doesn't really get represented a lot in film. There's video game movies left and right, but board game movies not so much. So one of the things that I kind of took delight in with the original Jumanji was that it was about adults playing a board game to survive, and that was very neat. And now this one, took it, sort of flipped everything on its head, so now it's kids, teenagers playing a video game to survive. And I just, I had like a little moment of like, oh, because there is a scene at the beginning where the board game is found by this teenage kid in the 90s, complete with his rocker hair and everything. And he's like, board games? Oh, dude, nobody plays those anymore. Shaw, valet. And then he just kind of forgets about it. So to get his attention, the board game magically turns into like a little Atari cartridge. It was kind of jarring because when he opens the box the next morning and it's just a cartridge now, like that beautiful wooden board is gone. And I was just like, oh, that's a shame. But, whatever. Moving on. So we got a great premise here, which I really like what they did, where you've got these 4 kids, normal teenagers from different walks of life, who get sucked into this game. It's a very Breakfast Clubby kind of thing, where they're very they're mismatched, these kids. These 4 kids would not normally be friends. But they all get detention for various reasons, and they're stuck together in detention. So they have to kind of bite the bullet and hang out with each other for an extended period of time. It's in detention where they find the old Jumanji video game. Love to know how it ended up at that school, but that's a story for another day. And so they plug in the game because they're bored, and they're like, screw detention work, let's play this game. And then the game obviously sucks them in, and jungle stuff happens. I really loved what they did with the game avatars. That was a new thing for this movie. In the original, the game kind of came to you. You were always you. Robin Williams was always Robin Williams. And just, a rhino would be in his house. This time around, these kids are in the game, and they have to change to match their avatars in the Jumanji world. And that's sort of the core of everything that's good about this movie, is that whole sense of the avatars and like the kids turning into something that they're not. So you got the main kid, Spencer, who's very shy and nerdy. He's, your typical nerdy, keeps everything close to his chest, nervous, afraid of everything, allergies everywhere, kind of nerd, very stereotypical. And he turns into The Rock. Then you have the character of Fridge, who is the big, tough jock, who's not very bright, but he's great at football. And he turns into Kevin Hart, who is super smart in the movie because he's a zoologist, but, physically he doesn't really have the football physique anymore. You got Martha next. She is the Ali Sheedy kind of character, where she's very shy and awkward, and she's super intelligent, but she's just sort of not a social butterfly at all. Antisocial is probably the best word to describe her. And she turns into this kick-ass Karen Gillan, Lara Croft, kung fu kind of girl. And then you got Bethany, who is my favorite, who is this vapid teenage Instagramming selfie stick LOL typical millennial girl, and she turns into Jack Black. And that is all the best parts of the movie to me came from her and Jack Black, like came from that character. The writers did a great job giving these characters exactly the avatars they needed for this game. So every time you have that sort of person inside another person kind of thing, that's where the comedy really hits home in this. Like when The Rock tells everybody that they have to go on this crazy adventure, and then he kind of walks away from the group and he's like, "Don't cry, do not cry." It's like that's it. That's what makes this movie good, is stuff like that. And they really play with Bethany becoming Jack Black. They really play with that. And the best comedy parts, in my opinion, come from that. So they get sucked into the game, and then they have to do stuff. They're given this mission where they have to find a jewel, because a bad guy stole the jewel, and they got to bring the jewel back to this mountain. And that's essentially the plot of Jumanji 2. They get sucked in, they learn about themselves because they're in these different bodies now, and they have to bring this jewel back to where it came from. The execution of the whole plot, the execution of the adventure that they go on, I didn't love it. I gotta be honest. I didn't hate it. It was just very run of the mill. It was very bland. There was nothing sort of that stood out to me. There were no action set pieces that really stood out to me. There were no like adventure points or story beats in the action that stood out to me. It was just very basic stuff. And like I said, the strengths come from the characters and how they react to their new bodies and their new surroundings. I almost forgot to mention Nick Jonas is in this movie. There's a Joe Bro in Jumanji. He kind of fills the role of the Robin Williams character, in that he's been in there for a really long time. He actually, I'm not going to lie, Nick Jonas did a good job. I was not expecting a Joe Bro to be a decent actor, but he was decent. He didn't suck. He hit the right beats, which was cool. By the way, their enemy, the bad guy, was played by Bobby Cannavale, and he got a lot of flack for this movie, and I don't know why. I don't know why people hated him so much. He wasn't amazing. He was just a stock villain. That's all. He was really stock. He didn't really bring anything new to the table. His name was Van Pelt in the movie, which is the name of the villain from the first Jumanji. So that was kind of a neat touch. But they did do something cool with his character. I just wish they had elaborated on it more, where he controlled all the animals in the jungle. He had control over every animal. So that sort of gave a reason for why the animals would attack our heroes all the time instead of just being normal docile animals. But B, it gave Bobby Cannavale's character physically this really cool kind of look. He had like one of his eyes was always green because the jewel blinded him when he stole it. But then he always, because he was in tune with all the animals of the jungle, he would always have like spiders crawling on him or like centipedes coming out of his ears and shit. Like it was cool looking as a villain. They just didn't really play with it or elaborate it too much. It was just sort of there, like, here's this guy, do with him what you will. The adventure itself comes to a close the way we all expect. The kids learn about each other and about themselves, and they become friends. I'll stop there because there are spoilers, minor ones. Granted, this is not a very twist-heavy movie or anything like that, but if you don't want to know super deep spoilers, let's stop there, and I'll get into the nitty-gritty stuff starting now. So they eventually put this jewel back from whence it came, and that allows them to leave Jumanji. And over the course of the movie, they have every kid has sort of learned about their own strengths and weaknesses, which is it's a cute touch because the characters themselves, their avatars, all have strengths and weaknesses that they kind of had to adhere to while they're playing the game. And the kid, Spencer, the main kid, who was the super nerd who is allergic to all kinds of stuff and just afraid of everything, his character, The Rock, has no weaknesses. So they really did a great job of playing with that. Your avatar is really nothing like you, but you have to deal with it. There are great moments, even though this is the spoilers part, I'm not going to spoil the moments, but there are great moments where every character gets one moment where they're like, okay, I learned about myself now because I did this in the jungle. The jungle teaches us all. Like I've said earlier, some of the best comedy moments come from Bethany, who is Jack Black's character. I know I might get some raised eyebrows or some flack for saying this because it's true. It is very low common denominator humor that comes from this, but I found it really funny, which is that Bethany has a penis now because she's Jack Black, and they milk that joke. For me, they didn't milk it to the point where I stopped laughing. Like, I was always laughing at it. A lot of people said it got too out of hand, and I can understand that. I completely understand if you thought that was too lowbrow or just they kicked the dead horse, whatever. I get it. For me, I was having a ball. I loved that character. For me, I think they stopped right when they should have, and then they added one more sprinkle when you weren't expecting it. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. The Nick Jonas character, like I said before, he really is reminiscent of Robin Williams' character in that he has been in that game for a long ass time, and they set up in the beginning of the film that the house he used to live in, which is in this neighborhood where all these kids live, it's sort of this dilapidated house now. The family that lived there fell apart because their son got sucked into the game back in like 1996, and he's been missing ever since. So they presumed him dead, and now the house is just in ruin and everything. And it's very sad. And then when the game is over and everybody gets sucked back out, they saved his life. It was actually Bethany who saved his life, and he got to leave the game finally. But they did, and I can't remember if they did this in the original because, like I said, I haven't seen it since Le Cinema was playing it. But when Nick Jonas got to leave the game, he didn't come back out into the present day. He came back out in his own time in 1996. So that whole series of events where his family presumes him dead and falls apart never happened, and they just had like a normal, happy life. And at the end of the film, the four kids are walking down the street and they see the house and they're like, whoa, the house doesn't look like garbage. What's going on? And the kid who was Nick Jonas, who is now an adult, shows up at the house with his family. He's now grown up and he's got a family. It's very sweet. And the kid is played by Colin Hanks. Colin Hanks has a cameo, and that was one of my favorite parts of the movie. Colin Hanks just shows up and he's like, "Yeah, I was that '90s kid, Tubular," and I think he's got like a Metallica shirt on or something. By the way, the reason I'm wearing this is because it's semi-tropical. I kind of want it to fit the theme, but this is the only tropical thing I own. I'm not a very tropical person. I'm sorry. But it was great seeing Colin Hanks. His cameo was a very delightful surprise, and I wanted to save it for spoilers because I don't want people to know about it. And that's pretty much the gist of this movie. Like I said, there's not a lot to it. They had their fun in the game. They got out. They fought some animals along the way. Most of the praise has got to go to our 4 leads. It's got to go to Kevin Hart, The Rock, Karen Gillan, and Jack Black, because they did an amazing job of portraying those kids. And at the end of the day, you know, looking at it from an actor's standpoint, that's the best way to do this, is let the kids do their stuff first and then watch their performance and feed off of that. And all 4 of those actors really hit those notes perfectly. Particularly Karen Gillan. She was great at playing that girl. Like when you see that girl in school, like I said, she's very antisocial, and she kind of she's wary of people, and she's always standing like this, and I was like, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody. And Karen Gillan brings that, even when they're in the jungle, and she's like this badass chick and whatever. She's still got that. She's like, so guys, what should we do? I don't know what to do. She still encompasses everything that was that girl, except now she's in a Lara Croft body kind of thing. And like all 4 of them did that superbly. I think Karen Gillan stood out the most as being like, she even looked like that girl. Maybe that's why she stands out. Like, that girl looked like Karen Gillan. The work they did emulating those kids' performances was spot on. It's not my favorite movie I've seen this year. It might be one of the funniest movies I've seen this year. Granted, I didn't see a lot of comedies, so that's not saying much. But it was fun. It was worth the watch. It was a nice callback to the original, though I really missed the board game. Speaking of callbacks, there was a little callback to Robin Williams. His character was named Alan Parrish in the old movie. And when we meet Nick Jonas, he's living in a hut in the jungle, and on the wall of the hut, it says Alan Parrish was here. So that was the hut where he was living, where Robin Williams was living all those years, and when he grew that crazy beard. So that was kind of cool. Like I said, you don't need to reboot everything. You can make it a sequel and still be able to move forward, which is exactly what they did. So I'll give them 100% kudos for that. So go see Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. If you loved the original, you'll like this. It's different. It's not the strongest movie I've seen all year, but it was a decent, fun time. I don't think I'd watch it a second time, but I enjoyed what I did. I'm curious now, because it looks like they're trying to build a franchise out of this. What I want to see now is a real kind of fish out of water thing. And what I mean by that is this. This movie is about kids getting sucked into a video game. Primarily, video games are played by kids, by teenagers and small kids. So if they make a sequel to this, what I want to see is adults getting sucked into a video game. Because they would be so out of their element. Like, I'm thinking like stuffy, like corporate adults who need like a good smack lesson to the face. Just the way you could play with that, they would be so far out of their element. They'd be like, "What's a game? I don't know what to do. What are these lives I have? What's a game over? What's a cutscene? What's this? What's that?" They would have the fun you could have with that would be amazing. If the adults are even older, like let's say they're middle-aged, maybe like close to their 50s, and then the avatars are like young 20, 30 something bodies like they were in this movie, that would be cool too, because they have a chance to be young again. You could make it almost like a Christmas Carol-y kind of thing, where these bitter old people are shown, they get to kind of be young again in a way and see what it was like and get a better appreciation of it. So that's what I want to see if they make a Jumanji 3. I held up 2 fingers. Jumanji 3. So let's see that. Let's see the grown-ups try to get through a game, because I think that the opportunity for comedy and for personal growth are still very, very much there. You can just look at it from a totally different perspective. So that's Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. Thank you so much for watching my very sexy video with my very sexy shirt. Please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time on Thumb Together. Adios.